Oh, maybe this might be cool to just a real quick, like 1 second thing. What's up? This is Baseck in Los Angeles, and we're here in my studio. I guess I don't have to say I'm an artist and producer, you can tell. The approach to my current projects is I just wake up, and my machine of choice right now has been the Analog Rytm, so a lot of times the music that I make is really fast, abrasive. It's kind of meant for me just to have a release. A lot of stuff that I do is just like feeling like I'm breaking free from whatever it is, you know, the tensions of life. I just open up some samples, start smashing some buttons, and the process is kind of just all free form. There's usually not something that I have in my head that I want to get out, but it's just like, you know, I pull up a sample, start chopping it up and creating something that fuels me, and then from there, there's not really anything planned, it's just flowing. I remember being like 13 years old, and I remember going through Warehouse Music, which was a chain store at the mall. I remember seeing this techno section, and there was a 140 BPM speed limit compilations, and that just sounded so strange to me, like 140, what is that? And I remember picking up one of the tapes, and then one of the songs on it said that it was 180 BPM, and I went straight to that track, and that sounded like the most bizarre alien version of what music is, because that's my mind thinking, oh, if I was an alien trying to understand the past but I didn't know how, let me try and make a breakbeat out of analog parameter sounds that are all synthesized. I feel like everything that I do comes from my involvement in the old school rave scene since the early 90s. That's one of the things I think with a lot of music that's coming back, like, you know, from 10 years ago, from 20 years ago, it keeps on getting popular again. And even though that's rad, like, I want to always feel fresh. Well, first I started DJing with my cousin Mario and my brother Jose. We started DJing with some help from Mario's uncle, and then he started showing us some Qbert videos about scratching, and we already loved hip hop. So I would come home from school, and sometimes I would make 2 1-hour sets, and then I would just immediately, when I was done, just listen to that tape just in the dark. So it took me like 2 hours to make it, and then 2 hours to listen to it, you know? My mom would be like, Mijo, I made you some food or whatever, you know, and I'm just kicking it. And she's just like, what is this guy doing? Just listening to like hardcore banging acid. And I'm just like, yeah, like, I think I knew then. I was just like, whoa, this is something really special. You know, like every day I would try and at least pick it up, you know, 30 minutes as like a meditation. And I remember I was riding my bike and I fell and I used my hand to brace myself, and then I couldn't scratch anymore. And I had a drum machine at the time that my friend let me borrow, and I could do that, but I couldn't do crazy wrist movements. And that was part of the transition to working in a lot of drum machines instead of scratching. After that, I started making music on trackers. We had the family compact Presario computer, and we downloaded Fast Tracker 2, so I started like chopping up breaks and trackers. And then my friend was just like, oh, you're down with trackers? Oh, I got this Game Boy, and it has a tracker on it, and that was Little Sound DJ. I remember going to the park, and then I was tripping out because I'm making like the craziest hardcore break beats, and then I'm just like, what the hell? Like, take off my earphone, and I'm looking around and just people playing, put it back on, and I'm just like, this is actually bananas. This is not just a toy, you know? So for years after that, I started just touring Europe with 2 Game Boys. My whole philosophy too on making music, like when I make tracks, I don't use this whole studio, you know, like I like taking one box, because that's kind of like the Game Boy way for me, and saying, what could I shred on this one box? Like a lot of my live set just used to be one analog rhythm. That's it, just like with reverb or something. And now I'm using 2, but that's the way I go about my tracks too. Like every machine, I like to try and have it be its own like ecosystem. Or if I'm playing a show and I'm only gonna grab the digitone, I wanna make sure that I can rock a whole set just on the digitone by itself. Yeah, the hindrance is just getting too much, you know? Like now that I slimmed it down and I'm learning to not pay attention to anything, I write tracks on one machine, and then especially that with the overbridge stuff, with the Analog Rytm, I'm realizing I could write my melodies in there and then send that MIDI to my DAW and then stack it with a bunch of plugins now, or also take that MIDI from that machine, send it MIDI to CV, put it anywhere in the modular, and figure out how I could take simple things and then make them expand. And I'm finally, after all these years, I'm using that to my advantage.